Welcome to Safe and Sound, sponsored by White Mountain Fire and Life Safety. I am your host, Kirk Webb, and today on our show we have Brian Swanty, who is Chief Deputy of Navajo County Sheriff's Office, and Rhonda Krouse, who is Preparedness Planner for the Emergency Operations of Navajo County. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So Brian, you're kind of got a big history about what you've done in your life as far as a career. Give me a little bit of history about yourself.
Well, thank you, Kirk. I just recently started with the Navajo County Sheriff's Office as the Chief Deputy back in February of this year. Prior to that, I spent the past 27 years working for the Arizona Department of Public Safety in many different roles. The majority of my time at the Department of Public Safety, I was spent working as a highway patrol officer and a highway patrol sergeant. So, from investigating traffic crashes to vehicular crimes and drunk drivers and what have you. The latter part of my career at Department of Public Safety was in the Criminal Investigations Division in gang enforcement and intelligence and narcotics investigation.
And I appreciate how you said car crashes. I know that's kind of some terminology that we typically like to use because accidents kind of infer that they could have been avoided and should have probably been avoided. But so I like to use the term crash myself. So appreciate that. Rhonda, let's give it a little history about yourself.
Well, I started out in the fire service in the early 90s. I grew up in a firehouse, and I did a lot of odds and ends, first responder type stuff, 911 dispatcher, went through law enforcement academy, and then inevitably went back to fire service and was doing that for quite a few years and was a car seat tech for 5 of those years. And so to me, raising my 2 children, car seats definitely were number one in my life, so definitely important. And
you even spent some time in the teaching field for a little bit too, and so you've had a lot of experience with that younger age group. Yes. And kids, and and I know, like myself, I kind of grew up in a large family, 7 kids of my own, and growing up, car seats and seat belts, we didn't use them.
Right.
Of course, I'm a little older than both of you, I think, but I can still remember riding in the back of the pickup. Yes. or we had one of those cars. It was you look backwards in the trunk space,
really?
And
yeah.
I don't even think that car had seat belts. I really don't remember, but when I got married and we started having kids, actually when I got married, my wife was very much the person that got me wearing a seatbelt, and because of some experiences that she had, and then it transitioned in doing construction and things like that, and I had a crash with a 10-wheeler rollover, and the seatbelt saved me, and I did suffer some injuries from that, but the seatbelt kept me from being ejected and possibly killed or whatever. So it's evolved and transitioned, and when I got into the fire service, I became a car seat tech as well, and I've been doing that for quite a few years now. And so and I'm sure that you've got some experiences out on 27 years with highway patrol. That's and most of that spent as being a patrol deputy.
Well, we will take offense to that. It's a highway patrolman or a trooper.
Okay, gotcha.
You can't call them deputies anymore. You can call my deputies troopers. So it is a little.
I got to learn that terminology. I don't wear a gun. All right. So it's but no. And there are and maybe that's some good information. What is some of the terminology difference between because I see those cars. Some of them say state trooper. Some of them say highway patrol. There is a difference then.
So there was for many years at Arizona DPS, there was somewhat of a identity crisis, if you will. And they were called patrolmen for many years, and then back in about 2000s they started calling them officers. And in reality, what that agency does is more along the lines of what a trooper does. You go back east and even in Kansas and Colorado or whatnot, they refer to their state police officers as troopers. And so sheriff's deputies are called deputies, city police officers are called officers, and the state law enforcement guys are called troopers.
So it's more so it's language that you guys can know who's who out in the football field, so to speak.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So and cool, and and I just know that from my experience of being in fire department and fire district, I appreciate the law enforcement. I know we rely heavily, especially up here in rural Arizona, where it's just you never know what you might run into. And there's been numerous scenes where I've wanted to carry around with the little fire department badge that I can hand to the officer, because he's actually done a good job of either stopping the fire or putting it out completely before we arrive on scene, car fires and things like that.
And Kirk, that's a great point. You and I have both worked here in this region for many, many years, and there's a fun banter, a fun rivalry, and the old guard with when you were a young fireman on a fire truck and I was a young patrolman, we had a lot of fun, and we took care of business. I think we did a phenomenal job, but we also had fun. And what's odd is I'll go to a wreck now, and I've been out of it a little while as I promoted, and there's a bunch of young firemen there, and I start trying to banter with them, and they don't understand the back, so they think I'm a big jerk,
Right.
But
the culture's changed a little bit.
But no, we've always had a phenomenal working relationship with the fire service and the EMS, and very grateful for that, because that isn't always the case.
No.
As I've traveled around the state during my career, there's sometimes that banter is actually serious, and the two agencies don't get along, and overall, whether it's in emergency management, fire, law enforcement, we have a great partnership here in Navajo County, and to include Apache County as well.
Right.
Yeah, we do, and we work well with our neighbors on the other side, and even when we get into the large forest fire scenes and have to rely on each other for those events, but it is, if you can't have fun at your job, it's like, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm still here.
and keep going. That's right. But as we get back to talking about car seats, and I know over the course of the years, and like I say, once I started having kids and realizing, one, they're not bouncing around the vehicles, and two, they actually start kind of creating a habit and a culture of, hey, in fact, one of my grandkids, as I would be driving off, and he's not completely, because he's got to be where he's sort of old enough and he could buckle he wants to do his own buckle and stuff, and he's, Papa, I'm not buckled yet. And I'm starting to back out, right? And that's like, and I appreciate that, because he knows, and he's seen, and as we talk about different things, and about the safety of kids, and how many, and still these days, here it is, 2020, and how many people are dying in car crashes every year?
Right.
I mean, it's in the thousands, and most of those cases could have been avoided simply by not only kids and children wearing seat belts and being in the proper seating system, but adults as well.
And Kirk, that's a great point. I wish I could have somehow kept track of all the crashes that I had been to, in my time, but I have no idea. It's hundreds and hundreds, and very rarely it has happened, but very rarely are we removing somebody that's deceased out from a seatbelt.
Right.
It happens. The dynamics of every crash are completely different, but I can tell you right now, it's very, very few people that have been ejected out of a vehicle that have walked away or survived that. You exit that vehicle during that dynamic crash, your chances of survival are very, very slim.
Right.
With today's technology in those vehicles, the The fronts are designed to collapse, the rear is designed to collapse, but that cavity where the driver compartments are designed to stay intact. And if you're restrained and you stay in that seat, a lot of times that structure will help protect you. But if you exit or you're flying around inside the car, there's no guarantee.
Right. And in fact, even you talking about, we were talking earlier before we started the show about, putting the seatbelt behind you or underneath your arm. And the belts are designed to hit on the hardest parts of our body, which is across the pelvis and then across the chest and the shoulder, because, like you say, underneath here, it's soft. Yeah. Going to have all kinds of injuries. And when you were doing car seat classes and things like that, what were some of the, and we do car seat checks every now and then, and what were some of the common things that you found wrong with parents?
A lot of the time they wouldn't secure the car seat to the actual seat tight enough. So they thought, well, if I just stick it in and it's clicked, then we're safe and it's all good. But I had to show them, look at how much leeway you have in this car seat. And I even pushed it forward, and so in a major car accident, it's going to happen quickly, and then your child is going to take the brunt of that force because that seat is not taking that anymore.
Or they're going to hit the seat in front of them because it's got too much slack. Or the way the seat belts in the vehicle are designed, they think they buckle it, but now if they've got they have vehicles. They have to switch it to a locking and retractor to get the seat belt portion.
A lot of them didn't realize that you had to pull it out to lock it, and then it cinches up tight.
Like ratchets tight. Yeah.
Gets it back in tight. And I know we talked to parents about, because it used to be you could turn your kid around when they're 1 year old and have them forward facing. Now we recommend clear up to the weight limits of the seat itself. Yeah. And so some cases that may mean the kid's 3 years old. Right. I know one of the common things they said, well, my kid, his feet are all, and he's all like this. I says, where was he for 9 months? Right. What was his feet doing? He was just like that, right?
You make me sit like that, I'll have a problem.
Exactly.
And that's what I would tell is the parents are the ones feeling uncomfortable, not so much the child. And because honestly, if we could drive rear facing, because most crashes are what? Front end crashes, right? And so that front end crash. So if we could drive rear facing in the middle seat, in the middle of the car, furthest away from all intrusions into the vehicle, that'd probably be the safest place for us, because then we have that head protection, So, and I like how you described the cars, the way they're designed. They absorb all those crash forces. I don't know if you remember, what's the laws of physics for crash dynamics? Do you remember that formula?
No, kinetic energy, that's all I really know.
So, and I had to look this up, so bear with me. It was weight times speed equals your crash forces. Okay. So when I'm teaching a class about parents or grandparents, and it's crazy because we have so many grandparents that are primary child care givers. But and I tell them, I says, let's just take a really simple, because I have to pull out the calculator for math, but I can do this one, I think, in my head.
Well, you went to Blue Ridge also, huh?
Oh man. Yes, that's all right. So you take a 20-pound baby, or let's say, let's make it a little more like a 30-pound baby. Okay, that's real common. 30-pound baby in the vehicle doing 20 miles an hour. So if you take 30 times 20, that's 600. That's how much crash pounds. So that equals 600, and you transfer it to pounds. Right. 600 pounds of force being exerted on that seatbelt. Right. So when you remember, I don't know, did your mom used to hold you in your arms when you was driving down the road? Yes. I mean, you see those pictures all the time, sitting on the lap, and I mean, do we see that nowadays?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
In the rural areas, dirt roads.
So can that parent, whether it's mom or dad, can they pick up and hold 600 pounds? No. That's just a 30-pound baby.
Right. So, Kirk, I've got an instance of that very same thing. I was working in the Phoenix Freeway, and traffic is slowing down kind of rapidly in rush hour, and there was a minivan, and a mother had their young child, I don't remember how old it was, 1 or 2 years old, sitting on their lap, and then had them both buckled. And so the driver of this minivan had to slow rapidly, and then there was a collision, but it wasn't a significant collision. That impact coming to a stop, the weight of the mother with that formula you just talked about killed that baby.
Wow.
It was terrible. I'll never forget that. And the mother's intent was, oh, we're okay because we're buckled in. We're not going to fly out. But they don't think about that baby had just now absorbed all that kinetic energy that the mother maintained.
Right.
So it was an awful situation.
And that kind of even reminds me of when we're talking with parents and caregivers, there's not just one single crash in every vehicle crash. There's at least, so you got the vehicle that, let's say it runs off the road and hits a pine tree. So the initial crash is the vehicle into the pine tree. Well, the secondary crash is now the person driving. Let's just say there's just a driver in there. That person driving now, let's say they are wearing their seatbelt. Well, now their body hits the end of that seatbelt, and it's not a soft kind of just slow down, cushion you. It's an abrupt stop. So there's crash number 2. And then now all of our guts inside of us are not totally secure and locked in place. So now they all squish up against our rib cage and our abdomen and everything else. So there's crash number 3. So I can't imagine that having to come up on and take care of a scene like that. And, and I know we've seen, I can vividly remember the first night that I ran on the ambulance. And this was back when we were volunteer days, and the full-time guys ran ambulance from 8 a.m. It was 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the rest of us that were on the volunteer fire department that were EMT trained or medic would sign up and run a shift. And I just happened to be running a shift with my older brother and myself. We're 2 basic EMTs, and so 6 p.m., and I think we got the call somewhere around 10:30 at night, a rollover crash there on Porter Mountain. And right there, you probably know it as Dead Man's Curve.
Know it well.
And numerous crashes there that we've had throughout the years. And I'm kind of terrified. First night as a brand new EMT, and we get there, and it's a small pickup. And I can still see the whole, even though it was dark, I can just vividly see everything in my vision. And 3 patients. And when they train us as EMTs, they train us to save those that are most survivable. Right. So 2 of them are obviously not breathing and have no pulse. And the third one, she's banged up pretty darn good. And so my brother, him being an EMT longer than me, he tells me to take the patient, the young girl, and help her and make sure she's okay. And he has to choose between the other 2, which one he's going to work with, because it can only do so much. And all their friends are coming down from the party that they just left. And they're yelling at us and screaming at us, why are you helping her? You need to help my friend over here. And why are you helping him? And it's minutes, and we're calling for help right away before we even get on scene. But by the time everybody else shows up at the station and gets the other apparatus and arrives, it's an easy 10-15 minutes. And I can still, and we had 2 fatalities out of that. And it's just, it's frustrating because you can only do so much. But yet I can still remember you looking at that pickup, and it was completely intact. I think the front windshield had some cracks in it, but it had flipped at least 2 times. and had they simply been wearing their seatbelts
Right.
and not been and remained inside that passenger compartment, and it just
Right. So for me as a parent, I think that was one of the major issues that I sat down with my children and told them that if you get in a car accident, it's going to affect us, but it's also going to affect those rescuers, because being on the other side of that, knowing that I have a child at home this age, now it affects me, and now it's going to affect my husband, and it's going to affect my family, because I can't just turn a switch and be like, I didn't pull a poor 15-year-old out of a car when all he had to do was, 5 seconds it takes. Pull your seatbelt, click, you're done.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you both. We're all three of us are parents, and after that age, that first child turns 16, and every time you hear a siren,
Oh gosh.
is it just me?
No.
Yeah.
It is not. So I do have to admit, my son, he was 17, he got a ticket, and it wasn't, okay, so he was speeding. He's a teenager, he speeds. But I was not mad at the speeding ticket. I was more mad that he got cited for not wearing a seatbelt. I was so mad at him. I took his car keys and I said, no, you're done. You have to earn this back, because we all speed, but that officer just saved your life by writing you a ticket.
My oldest son's first ticket, and I think probably his only ticket, was written to him by Chief Jeff Smythe on Old Linden Road. He stopped him for, I think it was 17 in the 15, and wrote him a ticket for a seatbelt. And my son turned around, came home, walked in the door with the car keys and his driver's license, and just handed them to me.
Because
And
he
of
knew.
course, the chief already called me.
Right.
And he says, I just wrote your kid a ticket. I'm like, right on. Good job. Thank you.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
and to this day, he's 28 years old now. To this day, every time I get in the car with my oldest son, that's the first thing that happens. And
Right.
he is adamant about putting his child in a child seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is so important. Just that, taking that 5
Yes.
seconds. And seatbelts, and even child car seats, they're not difficult to use. Now I know you look at them, because like this one here, this is what they call a 3-in-1, and it's really a pretty cool car seat, because it's designed from birth. So the weight limits on this is from 5 pounds, and it goes clear up till it can be used as a booster as well. So so it's not, and that's where it's kind of nice to, if they are confusing to you, look up to find out who a tech is. Go to your local fire stations. For the most part, most of them have somebody that's a tech. We've got people at the county health department. In fact, Amy Stradling works at the health department, and she's actually an instructor that can help. And I know we work closely with her, trying to, set up classes so we can get more car seat techs. And I know, I don't know how long it's been since you guys have had young, nice babies born here at Summit Healthcare.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, same here.
Not yet.
So, but how many hospitals, when there's a new baby, do they actually let them leave without a car seat? I think it's pretty much standard. But yet, once you get into the laws, they're pretty loose and lax. And in fact, it's still a secondary law where you can't have somebody you can't pull somebody over for a seatbelt violation. You have to find something else, right?
Now, with a child restraint, yes, it is a primary. A seatbelt for a person of the age of 16 or older, that is a secondary violation. So if you see, if as law enforcement, we see a kid climbing around in the back seat, yes, we can stop for that.
Well, that's good to hear that, and because that's been a long time coming. I know we've been pushing for that ever since I've been doing this car seat tech business, and because it's frustrating to see that kid bouncing around in the back, and you want so bad to just go over there and just show them this YouTube video of these car crashes, because they're out there,
and going back to the education thing, like you were talking about your granddaughter, or your grandson, I think.
Yeah, it was my grandson. Yeah.
Once they get used to it, they actually like their seat.
Right.
And they're sitting there, They can actually see out of the windows. Otherwise, if they're sitting down wearing just a regular traditional seatbelt, they can't see nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it fits them. A lot of them have cup holders on it. And it's comfortable for them too. So it's just a matter of getting them used to it.
I just want to clear one myth is a lot of people, they say, oh, well, I'm just driving down the street or I'm just checking the mail. It's only a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Well, statistically, most accidents happen within that 6-mile range of home.
Yep.
So that's where people they just need to think a little bit more.
Yeah, they get complacent. Oh,
Very
it's a drag that I have to do that, or it's so tough. And but like you say, most kids, they know how to buckle themselves in, and it's a good habit to get them into.
Yes.
So, but I think we covered a whole lot of things, and I know we got a little bit of sentimental thing going. Some tragic stories that we shared, and hopefully people will take and understand that seatbelts are not there to constrict us. They're not there to make our lives more miserable or uncomfortable. I know even talking about that airbag, and seatbelts, I think a lot of people have that misconception that, oh, my car has airbags, so I don't need to wear my seatbelt, but the seatbelt's what keeps you out of that.
They work in concert with one another.
Exactly.
One without the other is no good.
Right. Because that airbag coming at 200 miles an hour or faster even, and you're in that path, you can suffer internal decapitation, and that's it.
What you see a lot of too, especially in the summertime, is people in the passenger seat putting their feet up on the dash. And that airbag comes out, and oh my word, you start breaking bones.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where's that leg going? Right into you.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate you guys being able to join me on the show. I think this is a very important subject to talk about. And so Brian Swanty, Chief Deputy, and Rhonda Krouse, Preparedness Planner, thank you for being here. And thank you for watching Safe and Sound. We'll see you next month.